glory, a God-sized story.
Hello and welcome to another episode of God-Sized Stories. This week, my guest is DJ. DJ, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am 24 years old. I love sports, played them all my life actually. Getting married in about 2 months here, so that is super awesome. I'm the youngest in the family. I currently work at an accounting firm. I love numbers, but not only do I love that, as you know, I run a business, and that is very fun. So we enjoy going to kids' birthday parties and stuff.
Yep.
And that's somewhat of an introduction to me.
Yeah, it's been great getting to know you over the last few years now, primarily originally through doing that Outstanding Party Specialist Nerf action. But then even more so, just hanging out, getting to know you and your family so well. And there's been this theme in your life that you've shared with me, and I've obviously very much seen. It's why you've been able to do the things in your life that you have this testimony of consistency. Really, I want to start by asking, where did that consistency come from?
Well, I would say it really started when I was very young. I've always been very focused on discipline, and I've always wanted to put forth the best effort, have people think highly of me, things like that. So one example of, being disciplined is waking up early in the morning because I was homeschooled, so I could work from 6 a.m. to noon, and I would be done with all my work for the day, and then I could go outside, I could play basketball, I could play Legos, which are awesome, or whatever else. But I've always wanted to put in effort, put in work, and show up, and it's really been discipline from the very beginning, and I've just sort of progressed from there.
So I'm guessing you can really see the reward of that consistency in your life. How did this growing consistency give you a testimony as you were then transitioning into your college years outside of this homeschool life?
Yeah. Well, I originally took some courses while I was still in high school, dual credit kind of things. I was at CLC, local JUCO around here. CLC is not a Christian institution by any means, so I was able to be a light there. And I'm going to talk a lot about sports because I play a lot of sports, do a lot of sports, do a sports camp in the summer with you, and more. But specifically basketball there, I would show up before every practice, 20, 30 minutes early, and I'd go over in the corner and I'd do my little ball handling dribbles, and I'd go dribble this, move that, things like that. And coaches noticed that, and little did I know, I thought I was just looking like a nerd and, pounding the ball down as fast as I could. But it pays off. And so little things like that really started paying off. Teammates saw that, where's DJ? Oh, he's always at practice. Oh, he's always showing up. Would coaches ever have to worry about me? No. When my grandpa died, actually, we had the funeral on a Saturday, and there was supposed to be a practice. I was like, oh, can I go to this? Because my grandpa died, and the coaches are like, yes, you show up to everything. You're fine. Go. So it was really cool being able to not only show coaching staff, but as well other players. And it wasn't like I, did any specific fancy things by showing up, but I was just there. I showed up, and, end of the year party, coaches talk, and they say, wow, one of the things we always admired about you is you would show there, you'd be encouraging to people. Every day you'd be there. We could always count on you. So that's a point, at least in my CLC basketball career, and it's a JUCO, so I played there 2 years, that I was able to shine a light. And, non-Christian friends or friends who were Christians, they saw that. And it transitioned more just from basketball into the classroom, where I would always be the first one to class. In my 7:15 class, I'd be there at 6:45 or whatever to straighten the chairs up and, get my great seat. And yes, that is true. Ask many people. Sometimes, most times I would be there before the professors.
Was that your your first introduction to actual classroom? Like, were you homeschooled then pretty much like start to then?
I was homeschooled all the way through. So when I went to CLC, I laughed because it's hilarious. When I went to CLC, I was like, classrooms and desks? This is so weird. And like, we have to show up at a specific time, and all the people, my classmates, were like, this is like so relaxed compared to public school. We can get up, we can go to the bathroom. I'm like, this is so weird. You sit in your seat for like 50 minutes straight. So it was very different. And like I said, sort of easing into it was helpful on the transition. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and so I mean, professors noticed it and all sorts of things. And once again, it wasn't anything glamorous or super showy, super flashy.
So then, speaking of transitions, you transitioned then from this homeschooled life where you kind of had a little more control on things to then carrying the consistency you got from that to this junior college lifestyle that you probably had infinitely more consistency than everyone there, probably even the professors. And then you have another big transition because you go from that's a very low stakes, wonderful environment, to then kicking it up to a notch. You went to then a private Christian school, college, Trinity International University. What was that transition like?
Yeah, that was definitely very, very tough. Actually, my first year there was a lot of seeking, and I was wondering a lot about biblical stances on things. My faith was challenged in a lot of ways, partially because of the disconnect sort of between what I thought Christian or Christian institutions should do and to some things that I did see on the other side. So that was really interesting. But my basketball career there sort of changed in a different aspect. Previously, through my homeschool career, because I played on a homeschool team, my parents set up the league and stuff, I was always one of the top players or the best player at CLC. I was like that as well. I got a lot of playing time. I was a starter my second year there. But then at TIU, at Trinity, I took a backseat. There were a lot of other better players who coach specifically went out and recruited from all around, and some things like that. So I had an opportunity to, as we're talking about consistency, to show up on days that I, number one, did not feel like it because the workload was more here. I was living away from home, which was the first time in my life. And it was difficult in a lot of ways, but as I said, I continuously showed up despite what I was feeling, despite what I necessarily wanted to do, because of those disciplines and those practices that I put into effect early on in life. And as I grew through them, it continued into TIU. So one of the things we do, as an example, is we would do put-ups. And the whole philosophy behind that is we're a bunch of guys, all right, from the inner city of Chicago to Wisconsin, out on the farm, and everywhere in between. So we would all sit around after game, after practice, whatever it is, and we would put each other up and tell each other something that we appreciated about them, loved about them, or whatever it was. That person receiving the compliment had to look them in the eye and receive it back. And the whole point of that is being men in society. We don't have a good feeling about complimenting others, and we're always trying to put each other down to get each other up, and such like that. But on a lot of those put-ups, I was always put up for being an encourager, for showing up, for working hard, my work ethic, all of that showed up, and people said and cheered me on, said that they appreciated that about me. My coach even actually at the end, he wrote a letter to all of us seniors and said, he didn't really know what he was getting out of me when he first recruited me. Great way to start the letter. But At the end of it, he goes, but your work ethic has paid off. You put in the work over the summer and all sorts of things like that. And now look at where you've come with great shooting percentage and growth and all sorts of things. So that's a little bit of the TIU story. And the same thing happened there with classes and putting in the work, as well as helping these other guys who maybe don't have that. And because I wanted us to succeed as a team, I had to show up. And like I said, the first year, didn't play much there at all. Got intermittent minutes, a couple at the end of a game kind of thing, if that. But despite all that, and despite what I wanted to do a lot of the times, I kept going and I kept showing up.
That's the kind of the phase in your life where I actually first met you, and it's like you were doing a lot. You were in it at that point in life, and it's like that consistency was immediately apparent. And it's like talking about all the things you're doing at times. So it's like, first of all, you're at a university. That number one. If you're, especially because you're in finance.
Yes.
Like that's hard work. That alone, being consistent in that alone would be a big deal. Throw on top of that, you're playing collegiate level basketball now. That's a whole nother thing on top of that. Throw on top of that, you're running a business at that time.
Yes, still doing that.
And that's why I met you. Is you run the business. Somebody that we both mutually know. She was on the show before, Jean Earhart, connected us in that way. On top of that, I know eventually you started doing other things like student government.
Yes, that was like, something.
These are all big things that all on their own take time, and they take, to be successful, they need consistency. And you're one of the people in my life that, as I said, it's like you exude that consistency, and it's a blessing to see, because in our Christian walk, such a power of a testimony that like people see that, whether they say it or not, people see it. All the people around us, the people we work with, that we go to school with, it's a thing that is very obvious. When we say we're going to do something, if we do it, it's noticed. If we don't do it, it's even more noticed.
Amen.
And like I know for me, we were talking about this earlier, I haven't always been the most consistent person. I didn't grow up in consistency wasn't a cornerstone of my family. Like even my dad to this day, I love the man to death, but when he says, I'll be there in 10 minutes, it means 25 to 45 minutes. Like, yeah, he's consistent. I know it's always going to mean that, but it's not a reliable, consistent thing. And it took me a long time to get more consistent with my life, and it had made me stumble in a lot of ways. Not just my faith, but also in my life. Getting into the work life. Being consistent is really important. And I'm just blessed to have people in my life, brothers and sisters like you included, that I can look and be like, that guy's consistent. The Lord's trying to make me pay attention and try to model my life maybe a little bit better. So DJ, really, if you could say one thing that you really want to leave as like some parting words for our audience today, what would you say? Well,
thank you, Craig, for that compliment. That means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
And it really does. So I found a couple verses that I would like to just read out and sort of share. So they're in 1 Samuel 15 and 16 here. This is when Samuel, the prophet, is going to anoint David to be king. And there's just a couple things in here that we have. One is 1 Samuel 15:22. And this verse is, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. And one other one is, this is right when Samuel is anointing David to be king, and all of David's older brothers and his older siblings, who are more fashionable, stronger looking, taller, etc., come in, and this is what the verse is. 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So really what I'd like to leave the listeners is this idea that whatever it is, whatever you do, the simple obedience there is so powerful, and it's better than the fat of the rams. The showing up, whether it's showing up to Chipotle 15 minutes before your shift starts to make sure everything's ready to go and maybe pitch in an extra 5 minutes, or whether it's showing up to basketball and sports practices on time or beforehand and working out, or some other thing, depending on your circumstance. Obedience is powerful, and doing that is so great. The reason that David was selected was, as the verse says, "For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." And even if we're doing all these little things, like, to be honest, I wasn't trying to get glory or fashion when I was like dribbling the ball in the corner at CLC. I was just trying to improve myself and do what I could to be better. And my heart posture in that, it's a silly example for some, but it's actually very practical. My heart posture was just trying to improve and be obedient to what I was called in that instant. And I didn't know what my whole career had. I didn't know I would be getting married now, and I didn't know all this stuff, but I just took what I had. Basketball at this point, this area where I can help my teammates, where I can show up every day, no matter when I play a lot, don't play a lot, whatever it is, go there, serve with the right heart. And really what comes out of that is powerful. And it's nothing glamorous, it's nothing powerful, but it's a consistent, deliberate testimony that people can look back to and say, wow, there's something different 1 year from now, 6 months from a year, whatever it is. They look back and they go, there's something different. Why is that? And you just say, well, I just want to serve God. And I just want to have a heart that's like that.
Amen. Well, TJ, thank you so much for spending this time with me, for having a heart for our listeners, and this idea of the testimony of consistency. Audience, thank you so much. I hope you were really able to take a lot out of this and really find, I liked the thing that you talked about earlier, DJ, the put-ups. I really want to encourage the audience, find someone in your life, and maybe it's just one person this week, and really let them know how much they mean to you, especially if you can compliment them on a godly trait. People feel really separated right now, even besides the things going on in the world, even their everyday normal life. We're getting more and more separated. And if you can just give someone that compliment in the Lord, it could really lift their day up. So really look for those people. And listeners, thank you so much for listening. I couldn't do this without you. Goodbye.